Hi, everyone. Welcome to our event today. I'm Anna Beadle. I'm the Executive Director of Minnesota Justice Foundation. I want to thank you for coming to our event. We're glad to have you here with us this afternoon. We're going to start our time together with music played by Larry McDonough, along with a trivia contest. And we'll be putting instructions about the trivia contest into the chat. We also have live transcription, closed captioning enabled, and we will put instructions in the chat about how to turn that on. Everyone would need to do that individually. So for the trivia game, there'll be a link to a Google form where you can answer the trivia questions. We've put together some head scratchers about MJF history, along with some questions about some of the people who are involved in our event today. And we'll have a few gift cards as prizes. We want to thank Larry for playing music for us today. He's been kind to do this. He participated last year in our first virtual event, and he's also done it for us in person many times over the years at our in-person fundraisers. And in his professional life as a public interest attorney, he's also hosted a number of law student volunteers over the years to help with various projects that he's worked on related to protecting the rights of tenants in Minnesota. So thanks, Larry, again, for your help. I also would like to thank MJF's staff. First, Pat Harrigan, our Development and Communications Associate, is indispensable in putting this event together and has been for 15 years. So thank you, Pat. And I also wanted to thank our other colleagues. So we have 3 MJF staff attorneys, one officing at each of the 3 schools. So Christy Botts is at our St. Thomas office, Kendall Hames at our University of Minnesota office, and then Becky Bierling recently joined our team, and she will be working out of our Mitchell Hamlin office. I'd also like to thank our board committee who worked on this event over the past year. And to as well as our board president, Jack Sullivan, who will be emceeing this event tonight. And also a special thanks to the IT staff at Dorsey for helping us out with this event this year, as well as last year. So we really appreciate their assistance. So we will transition briefly to a few slides with some photos from past MJF events, and then Larry will shortly kick it over to playing from his home studio. So thank you.
Okay, I think it's time for me to start playing. Someone will yell at me if it's not. So I'm Larry McDonough. I'm an attorney in St. Paul, and I'm happy to be helping out at MJF. I'll say a few things about MJF, but I'll get started with some music here. I'm an attorney, but I'm also a professional jazz pianist, and I play at clubs like the Dakota and other clubs around town and occasionally in Europe. I'm playing some music from a CD that I recorded last year at an outdoor concert called Kind of Bill. It's the music of the pianist Bill Evans. I'm going to start with a piece that he wrote when he was only 24 years old, back in 1953. He wrote it for his niece, and it's probably his most well-known composition. It's called Waltz for Debbie. So that was Waltz for Debbie by Bill Evans. My history with MJF goes back quite a ways. I was in law school at the time that a few of us got together to talk about planning a public interest organization. I wasn't one of the mover and shakers, but I was one of the helpers on it. And so we got together and talked about kind of the public interest opportunities that we were not seeing as law students and wanted to have a vehicle so that people could get those kinds of experiences in law school. Back then, it was really just kind of hoping to have some guidance from a law professor who might say, contact this legal aid officer, contact that one. And so MJF kind of started rolling from that idea. And I don't think any of us thought that it would or envisioned that it would blossom into the really large and robust organization that it is. So I've been happy to be supporting that along the way. Next piece I'm going to play is another Bill Evans composition that often is attributed to Miles Davis, but Bill Evans wrote it. It's called Blue and Green. It shows up on the classic Miles Davis album, Kind of Blue, but Bill also recorded it in his album, Portrait in Jazz, Blue and Green. That was Blue and Green, written by Bill Evans and performed by a lot of jazzers over the years, principally Miles Davis and Bill Evans. So I'm happy to be playing music here tonight to support MJF, and I hope that those of you that are joining give what you can to MJF. It's the organization that really makes, it's the introduction to public interest lawyering for law students. And when you combine that with opportunities with clinics and externships and public policy-based courses, it really gives law students a lot of opportunities to see what kind of work they might want to do, either in the pro bono world or in the legal aid world, or a lot of other nonprofits that draw on public interest-oriented attorneys. So I hope you add that support there. Again, it's something that's very special to me because my involvement in the early years of helping it get off the ground, but also just having a number of law students over the years who worked with me when I worked in legal aid. And I've been on the board at different times in my career. So figure out the best way for you to support MJF. It could be a monetary contribution. It could be by hosting a student or sponsoring a student who would work in a nonprofit agency, and doing your best to whatever you can to help MJF do the great work that it's doing. The next piece I'm going to do is a piece that was written by Cole Porter called All of You. But Bill did a rearrangement of it that kind of changed a lot of the tune, but because he was a deferential guy, he continued to credit it with the name All of You and the composer Cole Porter. He performed this on the 1961 release Sunday at the Village Vanguard, and it's a piece that I play on my current CD that's playing around the country right now called Kind of Bill. This is All of You. Well, thanks for listening in tonight. I've been playing the music of Bill Evans from my CD Kind of Bill, and I've been here to support MJF. So stick around for a great presentation. It's always fun to see the new award recipients. I was fortunate enough to get a Distinguished Service Award back in 2008 from MJF. So sit back and enjoy the program, and please donate as you can. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jack Sullivan, the president of the MJF Board of Directors. And on behalf of the board and staff of MJF, I would like to welcome all of you and thank you for joining us tonight at our second virtual annual awards celebration. As we begin, I would like to extend a warm welcome and thank you to our keynote speaker, Justice Natalie Hudson of the Minnesota Supreme Court. Thank you for joining us, Justice Hudson, and we look forward to hearing your remarks this evening. Thank you too to Larry McDonough. For those of you who did join about a half hour ago for our pre-event, we were fortunate to hear Larry share his music and his memories of MJF and his insights into the pro bono and public service community and MJF's role within that community. This is MJF's 39th year. In 1982, law students founded MJF as a way to connect other students with opportunities to provide needed support to public interest lawyers and agencies within the Twin Cities. MJF has grown since then, and in over its 39 years, MJF student volunteers have filled more than 25,000 volunteer placements and provided more than 725,000 hours of service to 250,000 clients. Today, MJF is a partner to all 3 Minnesota law schools. We thank Mitchell Hamlin School of Law, the University of Minnesota Law School, and the University of St. Thomas School of Law for their support tonight as bronze sponsors of this event, and also, as importantly, for the support that they provide to MJF throughout the year. MJF works with the law schools to provide the law school public service program, otherwise known as the 50-hour challenge. This challenge brings to life Rule 6.1 of the Minnesota Rules of Professional Responsibility and encourages law students to volunteer at least 50 hours of their time on law-related volunteer work during their 3 years of law school. MJF's role in that is to collaborate with public interest law offices around Minnesota to find and place students in volunteer positions, helping all of those offices get important work done that might not otherwise get done. In addition, with the support of our donors, MJF provides stipends to law students who work full-time through 10-week fellowships during the summer, again placed at a public interest law office partner of MJF's. Since the initial days of MJF, this program has placed hundreds and hundreds of law students who have put in thousands and thousands of hours serving clients who might not otherwise receive services. Alumni of the fellowship program have continued in the public interest field, either professionally, or they have developed an ethos of pro bono service that they carry with them in their private practices. If you're interested, we've provided a list of our summer 2021 fellows and also the agencies at which they worked in the program book, which is distributed electronically to those of you who are joining us tonight. The fundamental goal and mission of MJF is to increase access to justice, and we do that by assisting our partners in the missions that they have. Simply put, our public interest partners can do more because they have the assistance of law students and they can get work done that might not otherwise get done. At the same time, those students gain practical experience and develop a pro bono ethic that they bring forward in their careers. We're proud to find former MJF volunteers and fellows leading in the private bar, in the public interest sector, both in Minnesota and around the country. Our goal tonight is to honor 8 people as Outstanding Service Award winners. I invite you all to review the program book to find out more about the honorees, but I'm going to introduce them now, and we'll have a video of each recognee for each award. Unfortunately, we're doing this remotely as we did last year. Last year, we'd hoped to have been able to return in person this year, and we will carry that hope forward and hope to be able to have an in-person event where we can meet these honorees next year. Our first award tonight is the Advocate Award. The Advocate Award recognizes the exceptional work of a non-lawyer staff member at a legal aid or pro bono program in the state of Minnesota. We are honored tonight to present this award to Greg Troutwine, who works at Legal Services of Northwest Minnesota. For more than 40 years, Greg Troutwine has been instrumental in all of the successful work that LSNM has done. Greg's 4 decades of commitment and dedication to the agency has been the foundation for the agency's work, serving tens of thousands of clients over that time period. Greg is recognized by his colleagues for a steady hand at the helm of the finances of the agency. And in fact, he is well known statewide, regionally, and nationally as an expert in legal aid funding. And a lot of that recognition comes from the fact that he generously shares his time and expertise with new staff working in financial and fiscal roles at legal aid agencies around the country. Finances aren't all that Greg does. It is only part of the contributions that he's made, and he has consistently led the organization in its technology efforts, leading them through technology changes, pushing for investment in greater infrastructure that allows the staff to more efficiently and effectively serve the needs of their clients. In addition to, in all of the aspects of his leadership, Greg is recognized for keeping an eye on the future of LSNM and continuously moving the organization forward while also keeping his eye on the long-term financial stability and high-quality client services that the community deserves. Greg Troutwine has dedicated his entire career to ensuring access to justice for the most vulnerable residents of northwestern Minnesota. And tonight, please join me in congratulating and thanking Greg for his service.
Hi, I'm Greg Troutwine, Administrator for Legal Services of Northwest Minnesota. I'd like to thank Ann and the staff at LSNM for nominating me for the Minnesota Justice Foundation Outstanding Service Award. I'd also like to thank my wife, Christy, who I married way back in 1980, the year I began my career with LSNM. How times have changed for us and for legal aid in Northwest Minnesota since then. Back when I began, it was just the 4th year in our program's existence. We had 1 office in Moorhead, a referral office for the private bar, as we were a 100% Judicare program, having no staff attorneys to serve clients. I did my accounting on 20-inch green and white ledger paper, and our high-tech equipment consisted of IBM's electric typewriter. Fast forward 41 years, and we now serve our clients using staff attorneys out of 3 brick-and-mortar offices, remote home offices, Judicare and pro bono attorneys, legal education presentations, websites such as lsnmlaw.org and lawhelpmn.org, legal kiosks throughout our service area, and a traveling justice bus to reach clients with limited technology. Any digital device, we can be reached anywhere at any time, which may or may not be a good thing. I know I've checked in on work in the middle of the night when I've been unable to sleep. Anyway, I digress. It's truly been a pleasure working with so many good people through the decades, all making a difference in the lives of our clients. We've survived all the attacks against legal aid, the funding cuts, the excessive regulations, and still we persevere. I'm so proud of all of us for hanging in there, seeing the larger picture that justice shouldn't be rationed, but be available for all. Thank you again to the staff for nominating me, and thank you for the Minnesota Justice Foundation for this award.
Thank you, Craig. Our next award is the Direct Legal Service Award, which recognizes the exceptional work of a staff attorney at a public interest law office or agency. We're pleased tonight to present this award to Kathy Close of the Immigrant Law Center of Minnesota. Kathy has been a tireless advocate for immigrants and refugees for more than 20 years. Her commitment began before law school. Prior to attending the University of St. Thomas School of Law, she worked as an immigration counselor and Department of Justice accredited representative for Catholic Charities of the Diocese of Green Bay, Wisconsin. After graduating law school in 2007, Kathy began her legal career as a staff attorney at Centro Legal in St. Paul, Minnesota. Kathy then joined the staff of the Immigrant Law Center of Minnesota as a staff attorney in May of 2009. She soon took leadership in an important new ILCM initiative. This followed the 2006 response of ILCM to an immigration raid at the Worthington Swift meatpacking plant, where more than 200 immigrants were arrested and detained. As ILCM was responding to that incident, it realized and identified the significant need for ongoing immigration legal services in Worthington. Kathy met that need, moved to Worthington, found office space, and opened the ILCM Worthington office in March of 2010. She worked there until 2013 when she returned to the ILCM main office in St. Paul. Now at ILCM, Kathy specializes in handling cases for vulnerable immigrants. She oversees a grant that serves victims of violent crime and domestic violence, and oversees a grant that serves clients with severe medical conditions. She tackles complex and demanding cases with compassion and empathy. She also is part of the ILCM legal supervisor team and currently supervises the agency's intake and pro bono projects. She regularly volunteers to give Immigration 101 presentations to community groups. Kathy is a dedicated and compassionate advocate who is zealous in her representation of low-income immigrants and refugees. Please join me in congratulating and thanking Kathy.
Hello, everyone. I am honored and humbled to receive this award. In the nonprofit world, as in life in general, it takes a village to do this work, to keep doing this work, and to do it well. I'm grateful to MJF for connecting me with so many wonderful attorneys in my field while in law school. Folks like Colleen Beebe at VLN to get volunteer experience, John Keller and Lenore Milliburgity at ILCM, where I had my first paid summer clerkship, Jenny Stoll-Powell, who was at Smurls, where I didn't get the MJF clerkship that summer, but it turned into a job, and Selena Britsius-Nagash for being my first mentor as a new lawyer. Thanks to MJF, my legal path evolved from volunteering and clerkships to a fulfilling career with ILCM these past 12 and a half years. At a staff meeting, someone once asked how many people had MJF ties, and about 3/4 of the room raised their hands. MJF is a win-win for everyone, but I know it takes time and effort. Thanks to the lawyers who take time to mentor students. You never know how the seeds you plant will bloom one day. And thanks to the students for sharing your energy and creativity with nonprofits. I'm grateful for Catholic Charities in Green Bay, where I first got the bug to practice immigration law, and for St. Thomas Law School, who gave me a fellowship to make this career path affordable. I'm deeply grateful for the support and encouragement from my family and from friends, colleagues, and mentors who have been with me through the celebratory and the heartbreaking moments. I thank God every day for these wonderful people and for the clients I've had the privilege to serve. They've given me the strength and lit the fire to keep doing this work. Thank you.
We now recognize the extraordinary service of 3 private practice lawyers who provided exceptional pro bono service on top of their demanding practices over the last year. We are pleased to present this award tonight to Jerry Blackwell, Steve Slisher, and Lola Velasquez Aguilu. In July 2020, Attorney General Keith Ellison announced that Mr. Blackwell, Mr. Slisher, and Ms. Velasquez Aguilu were to serve as Special Assistant Attorneys General on a pro bono basis, leading the prosecution of former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin. Jerry Blackwell is the founding partner, CEO, and chairman of the Minneapolis law firm Blackwell Burke, PA. He also is a co-founder of the Minnesota Association of Black Lawyers. In 2020, Jerry and Blackwell Burke collaborated with community organizations to commemorate the 100-year anniversary of the wrongful conviction of Max Mason and the anniversary of the brutal lynching of 3 Black circus workers in Duluth in June 1920. Jerry led the effort to secure a posthumous pardon for Max Mason. Lola Velasquez Aguilu is lead counsel for Medtronic's brain modulation business. She is a former assistant United States attorney for the District of Minnesota. While at that office, she prosecuted complex multi-defendant white-collar crimes. Lola also has served as chairwoman of the Commission on Judicial Selection and is a member of the Infinity Project, whose mission is to increase gender equity and judicial diversity in the state and federal judiciaries. Steve Slisher is a partner at Maslin LLP. He concentrates his practice on high-stakes criminal and civil litigation, government and internal investigations, and appellate practice. A former federal prosecutor, Steve worked for 13 years in the United States Attorney's Office for Minnesota. Prior to that, he was a prosecutor at the Attorney General's Office and the Winona County Attorney's Office. Before that, he gained experience in military courts, having served as a Judge Advocate General Corps officer in the United States Army Reserve for 10 years. Each of these 3 attorneys stepped away from their private practice and joined a trial team on which they and their colleagues dedicated thousands of hours to prepare and try the case against former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin for the murder of George Floyd. Their work was instrumental to the guilty verdicts that were returned against Chauvin. Speaking afterwards, Attorney General Ellison described the verdicts as the culmination of long, hard, painstaking work, and said that they represented accountability, which was the first step towards justice. Please join me in congratulating and thanking Jerry, Steve, and Lola.
Thank you. You know, most of the good in the world is done by people like you and me every day without any thought, any recognition, just simply you're having a conscience and hearing and feeling somebody in need and heeding the call. The ability to help itself is all the recognition that we expect. Probably if it weren't that way, we wouldn't even know what charity meant. So, like most of you, I don't do what I do because of any expectation of recognition. But still, it's always good to be recognized by your family, in this case, legal family. So I say thank you to you for this recognition. And I say thank you also to my 4 other colleagues from Blackwell Burke who together devoted thousands of hours to this same shared cause. Thank you to you. Thank you to them.
Thank you for this award and recognition. It means so much coming from the Minnesota Justice Foundation because your group was started by students who had a passion for justice and the spirit of public service, and who created something that's lasted for decades, has made a real difference in the state of Minnesota. I thank you for what you do every year. I humbly accept this award along with my co-honorees on behalf of myself and the talented, incredible team of men and women who worked so hard on this case. When you do rewarding work, the work is the reward. And it has been my distinct honor and privilege to be allowed to work on this historic case. Thank you so much.
Thank you to the Minnesota Justice Foundation for selecting me to receive the Outstanding Service Award alongside Jerry Blackwell and Steve Slisher. This case was an amazing team effort, and I'd like to start by thanking Jerry and Steve and all of the team from Blackwell, Burke, and Maslin for the pro bono services they provided to this prosecution. I'd also like to thank Neil Katyal and the amazing team at Hogan Levels. Their work on this case was invaluable, and working alongside them was a pleasure. To the staff and attorneys at the Henry County Attorney's Office and the Attorney General's Office, thank you as well for welcoming this band of outsiders onto the team, for creating an environment where no question was a dumb question and where every idea was worth considering. Thanks especially to Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison for having the vision to put this team together and for managing us with such skill and respect. Thank you, Attorney General Ellison, for believing that I had something to contribute to this case and for calling me and asking me to serve. Working on this case with this team has been and will always be one of the greatest privileges of my professional career. A huge thanks to the Floyd family for consistently inspiring us with your grace and faith, and for trusting us to pursue justice on behalf of your brother. Thank you again to the Minnesota Justice Foundation for all of the amazing work you do. And thank you for this award. I am truly honored and humbled.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Anna Beadle. I'm the Executive Director of the Minnesota Justice Foundation, and I want to thank you again for joining us today to celebrate and recognize all of our amazing award winners. And I'd like to take a moment now to make a special thank you to our gold and silver sponsors. And then we'll proceed with recognizing our Law Student Award winners. For our gold level sponsors, I'd like to thank Dorsey and Whitney, Fredrickson and Byron, Robbins Kaplan, and Stinson. And for our silver sponsors, I'd like to thank Ballard Spar, Collins, Buckley, Santry, and Hogg, Bellhaber Larson, Lathrop GPM, Maslin, and Taft, Statinius, and Hollister. Thank you for your support for this event again this year. So now we'll proceed to the part of our program where we recognize our Law Student Award winners. Our final three awards are for outstanding service by a law student. We have one for each law school, and they're presented to students who have demonstrated a commitment to public service. Our first Law Student Award winner is Brenda Fonnell of Mitchell Hamlin School of Law. Brenda was nominated for her work at Immigrant Law Center of Minnesota, or ILCM, as well as her work with the Mitchell Hamlin MJF student chapter. Brenda began volunteering with ILCM right at the start of her 1L year. She assisted with ILCM's detention hotline, conducted legal research, and dove right into public service work from the very start of her law school experience. As a rising 2L, she had an MJF fellowship at Southern Minnesota Regional Legal Services, or SMIRLS, in their immigration unit. Then after that, Brenda rejoined ILCM in the fall of her 2L year and has been working with ILCM since. In her work on the detention line, Brenda answers calls from detainees or their loved ones dealing with ICE custody. She may be the first friendly, compassionate, and listening voice that many who are undergoing a stressful situation have heard in quite some time. Brenda has assisted with 150 to 200 of those calls over her time at ILCM, which includes conducting intake, consulting with a supervising attorney, and sending out pro se materials. Brenda has also assisted ILCM attorneys with cases that they have pending before the immigration court. And in addition to her work with ILCM and SMIRLS, Brenda traveled to Tijuana, Mexico to volunteer through Al Otro Lado during her 1L spring break. She also works as a student attorney through the Immigration Law Clinic, representing clients in a variety of affirmative immigration matters. Brenda has also been a member of the MJF student chapter since her 1L year and has been active in fundraising efforts through their public interest law fellowship program, which means that she is actively supporting her classmates in pursuing their own public interest career paths. So thank you, Brenda, and congratulations.
Good afternoon. My name is Brenda Fonnell, and I'm a third-year student at Mitchell-Hamlin School of Law. I'd really like to thank the Minnesota Justice Foundation, both the statewide chapter and our local student chapter at Mitchell-Hamlin for this recognition. But more importantly, I'd like to thank MJF for providing law students at all three of Minnesota's law schools with meaningful work experience in public interest law. I know that I wouldn't have had the courage to leave work that I really loved to pursue a second career in immigration law if it weren't for the existence of an organization such as MJF. Thank you as well to the Immigrant Law Center of Minnesota, or ILCM. ILCM has been providing the Minnesota's immigrant community with immigration legal services for 25 years. They took me in on my very first day of law school as their law clerk. Their staff attorneys have provided me with guidance, mentorship, and support for these past 3 years. I really appreciate your support. Additionally, I'd like to thank the immigration unit attorneys at SMERLS, or Southern Minnesota Regional Legal Services. I had the privilege of serving as SMERLS MJF Summer Fellow after my first year of law school and learned much with their mentorship, so thank you. I'd also like to thank the immigration attorneys at Mitchell-Hamlin's Immigration Law Clinic. Thank you for pushing me, for your guidance and your support. I'd also be remiss if I didn't thank the fellow students at Mitchell-Hamlin. In particular, I'd like to give a shout out to Section 4. We started our law student years pre-COVID at 8 o'clock in the morning every single day. That wasn't easy, but I really was inspired by all of you. I continue to be inspired by your thoughtfulness and your intelligence. I look forward to seeing the ways in which we serve our community after we graduate. Finally, thank you to all of you for your support of MJF. MJF provides full-time summer fellowships to law students and does so with your support. Thank you, and I hope you have a really enjoyable evening.
Our second Law Student Award winner is Bridget Kelly of the University of Minnesota Law School. Bridget was nominated by a colleague at Housing Justice Center, where she worked during her Rising 3L summer and continues to work this fall. Bridget has spent much of the last few years working with people experiencing homelessness, both in California and in Minnesota. Her colleague at Housing Justice Center recounted working with her at a domestic violence shelter that was temporarily set up to help people as they were coping with the strains that COVID had put on the state's systems. Bridget consistently advocated for these clients to be treated with utmost respect and confidentiality, and made sure there were information releases for each client, and made sure that every conversation and communication mechanism was vetted to make sure it was safe and what the client preferred. At times when it seemed that all options had been exhausted, Bridget would often push to try one more time to follow up on an issue to help the clients. In other situations, there were grants and funding sources that were very difficult to understand. And in several instances, Bridget went the extra mile to help Housing Justice Center's partners understand how the funding sources worked and how they might best apply to shared clients. In addition to her work at Housing Justice Center while in law school, Bridget has participated in the Asylum Law Project and worked as a legal intern with Inner City Law Center's Lawyers Preventing and Ending Homelessness Project. Bridget also currently serves as a student director for the Community Legal Partnership for the Health Law Clinic, as the lead managing editor for the Minnesota Journal of Law and Inequality, and as a 3L Law Council representative. So congratulations, Bridget, and thank you for your work.
Hello, my name is Bridget Kelly, and I am honored to be here with all of you virtually this evening. I wanted to start off with a big thank you to the Minnesota Justice Foundation and to the University of Minnesota Law School for supporting and encouraging and celebrating integral access to legal services and public interest work. Before and during law school, I've had the opportunity to learn from really, truly incredible mentors and colleagues who practice a client-centered and community-centered approach to serving those navigating crisis, while often also experiencing this collision of systemic inequities. I am truly so thankful to have had the opportunity and to continue to have the opportunity to learn from those who with such genuine dedication. I also wanted to thank my family and my partner and my parents who continue to show me by example what it means to serve communities with respect and with humility and really with zealous advocacy. So many of my law school colleagues deserve to be recognized for their tireless commitment to public interest work and to serving individuals and communities in need. And I am truly humbled to be able to share this space with all of you tonight. Thank you so much.
Our final award for law students goes to Sam Prinz at the University of St. Thomas School of Law. Sam was nominated for her work at Southern Minnesota Regional Legal Services, or SMERLS, in their legal advocacy for older people unit. Sam volunteered on a research project over winter break during her 2L year, and then came back to SMERLS over her rising 3L summer for 20 hours per week. Among other work, she communicated with clients through interpreters, distributed brochures to community partners, prepared helpful internal memoranda, drafted documents for Medicare matters, and provided essential support while updating a chapter of Minnesota CLE's Elder Law Handbook on representing clients facing involuntary discharge from nursing homes and assisted living settings. Over the course of the summer, she was a key support for her supervising attorney and nominator in handling SMERL's elder law cases, which would require more than brief advice across the 22 county service area. In addition to her work at SMERL's during law school, Sam has worked for Medtronic in the global investigations within the Ethics and Compliance Office. She also works as a research assistant and serves as the notes and comments editor for the St. Thomas Law Journal, and participated in a year-long clinic assisting clients with writing federal commutation and pardon petitions. So congratulations and thank you, Sam, for your work.
Hi, my name is Samantha Prinz, and I want to thank you so much for giving me the MJF Law Student Service Award. I'm deeply appreciative to my supervising attorney, Laura Orr, for nominating me. Laura has been a positive mentor and teacher to me during my time volunteering and working for Southern Minnesota Regional Legal Services in the Elder Law Division. I'd also like to thank the Minnesota Justice Foundation, the staff attorneys and members for providing this platform and for facilitating and encouraging pro bono and legal volunteer work in Minnesota. As a future lawyer, it's really inspiring to see the value placed on pro bono work in Minnesota by my future colleagues and peers. Thank you so much.
Well, congratulations again to our 3 Law Student Award winners. And I briefly would like to take a moment to also do some special recognition this year. This year we are wishing to recognize 2 additional people. One is recent University of Minnesota Law School graduate Brent Mercia. And the second is our long-term board member and emeritus professor at the University of Minnesota Law School, Maury Landsman. And you can find more information on page 18 and 19 in our program book to read about Brent and Maury. Brent has spent countless hours as a student attorney advocating on behalf of the youth climate interveners in their work on climate justice and in opposition to Line 3. And Maury is, as I said, is our longtime MJF board member. Combining various terms, he has served on our board for 13 years and will be retiring from board service at the end of 2021. And we wanted to take this opportunity to thank him for the support and perspective he has shared with the organization over the years, and also to thank you both to Brent and to Maury for your volunteer efforts. And with that, I will pass it back over to Jack.
Thank you, Anna. And congratulations to all of tonight's award recipients. Every year, I am struck by and inspired by the work that the recipients do, and in particular, the student award winners, the commitment that they can make to volunteer service while also balancing the workload and the commitments and the stresses of law school. It's always an incredible insight into what some people are capable of. And our professional honorees, I think, show the result of the commitment that students make to the MJF program. As Kathy said in her video, so many of the people who are on the Zoom tonight, I would say in the room, in the virtual room tonight, have an MJF story to tell. Many of us volunteered, many of us were summer fellows. Those experiences showed us how to commit to a pro bono practice and keep that part of our professional responsibilities, or it inspired us to make that our career and to serve in a public interest or a public agency role. At this point, I want to invite you to support the MJF Summer Fellowship Program. We have fellows headed out in the summer of 2022, and it is a key part of how we raise money to support that work is the money we raise tonight, certainly through the generous sponsorships that our sponsors make, and also through individual contributions. Our goal for individual contributions is to raise enough money to fund 2 summer fellowships next summer. That's a total of $12,000. In donations that have already come through the MJF website, we have a good start on that. We are $4,800 towards that goal. And so tonight we're hoping that participants in our event will consider donating an amount that is meaningful to them and help us reach the goal of raising an additional $7,800 so we are able to fund 2 additional fellowships for next year. Reaching that goal means that 2 public service partners, places like the Disability Law Center, SMERLS, or the Anishinaabe Legal Services will have help that they might not otherwise get because we are able to fund a fellow and place that fellow at that agency. There are options to fund a day of a fellowship at $120, or perhaps a week of a fellowship at $600. Whatever you choose to give, thank you. And we appreciate your support both in participating tonight and in a donation that you consider giving. We will share a link through the chat, which will have a link to our website, which is mnjustice.org, where you can make a donation. Thank you for considering that. Now I'd like to introduce my colleague, Joy Wong, who is the Vice President of the Board of the Minnesota Justice Foundation. She is going to introduce our keynote speaker. And with that, I'll turn it over to Joy.
Thanks, Jack. Hi, everyone. It is my utmost honor and pleasure to be here today and to introduce Justice Hudson as our keynote speaker, because as a former clerk of Justice Hudson's, I know firsthand how wonderful she is, and I admire her tremendously. Justice Hudson received her bachelor's degree from Arizona State University and her JD degree from the University of Minnesota Law School, for which she currently serves on the Board of Advisors. After graduating from the law school, Justice Hudson was a staff attorney with Southern Minnesota Regional Legal Services from 1982 to 1986. an associate attorney at Robbins Kaplan from 1986 to 1988, the assistant dean of students at Hamline University School of Law from 1989 to 1992, the St. Paul City attorney from 1992 to 1994, and an assistant attorney general in the criminal appellate division at the Minnesota Attorney General's office from 1994 to 2002. In 2002, Justice Hudson was appointed to the Minnesota Court of Appeals by Governor Ventura. She has since then served on the Court of Appeals for 13 years until 2015, when Governor Dayton appointed her to the Minnesota Supreme Court. She was elected to the Minnesota Supreme Court in 2016, and her current term expires in 2023. I had the privilege to clerk for her from 2016 to 17 and really appreciated and benefited from her kindness, patience, warmth, and thoughtfulness during my clerkship. Justice Hudson is an extremely thoughtful listener and has a strong sense of responsibility. When I was clerking, I could clearly tell how much she values and cares about her duty as a judge and a public servant. Despite being extremely busy as a Minnesota Supreme Court justice, Justice Hudson always finds time to donate her service to good causes, such as being our keynote speaker today. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Justice Hudson.
Good evening to everyone, and thank you, Joy, so much for that warm welcome. It really is good to see you, as always. And I also want to thank the award ceremony committee for the invitation to be here with you tonight. I am truly honored to be a part of this very special event. And even though the pandemic has necessitated that we conduct the ceremony virtually, I know no one has let that dampen their spirits or their commitment to the vital work of MJF. And I too am pleased to add my voice of congratulations to all those that we've recognized here tonight, especially to the law students, to Samantha Prinz and Bridget Kelly and Brenda Fano. Given all the restrictions and safety protocols that have come with the pandemic, the attorneys, the law students, and the advocates that we recognize and honor here tonight are truly heroes and sheroes who have put the welfare of others before their own. The depth of their personal and professional sacrifice and commitment when it wasn't easy to be committed speaks to the content and depth of their character and exemplifies the very best of our profession. And it's really that kind of commitment that I want to talk about tonight, because we're in the midst of what I call an uncertain season, especially for those living on the margin. With the pandemic continuing to rage here in Minnesota, disproportionately impacting our state's most vulnerable citizens, this is an uncertain season. Uncertain because the legal and social needs of the most vulnerable in our community are so great. And yet COVID has decimated or drastically limited many of the traditional safety nets of the poor. And so we've seen fewer domestic advocates, as just one example, doing the kind of in-person contact with victims that is so critical to successful outcomes. The end result is the COVID-driven exponential increase in the demand for civil legal services here in Minnesota over the last year. Legal services experts estimate that the demand has increased by 30 to sometimes 50%, depending upon where you are in the state. So it really begs the question, what will we do as lawyers to respond to this once-in-a-generation crisis? What will we do? Albert Einstein once said that those who are privileged to know have the duty to act. And as law students and lawyers, we are privileged to know. We know the legal system. We know how the gears and the levers work. We speak the language. Thus, I have a moral obligation in this uncertain season to act. As Justice Thurgood Marshall so eloquently said, we have to dissent individually and collectively from indifference about the plight of others, so that justice is not simply for those of us who can't afford it. Of course, MJF has been acting for 39 years, but now is the time in this uncertain season to redouble your efforts. The great historian John Henry Clark once said that in Africa, you never say, I am my brother's keeper, you just keep them. And it seems to me that that is the challenge for all of us, and MJF in particular, to continue to be our brother's keepers, to acknowledge and affirm the humanity of those on the margin, and to seek for them the justice that we rightly would demand for ourselves. Because at the end of the day, justice really isn't all that complicated. It is simply love, compassion, and action being carried out in the lives of others. And the individuals that MJF has honored here tonight have demonstrated just that: love, compassion, and action carried out in the lives of their clients. You know, as I reflect where we are right now in the fight for equal justice to access, I'm struck in some ways by how eerily familiar it all is. MJF was founded 39 years ago in 1982. Which is exactly when I started my legal career as a legal aid lawyer with Smurls in St. Paul. And I practiced primarily housing law, which meant I handled a lot of evictions. And back in 1982, we still had municipal courts. There were no such thing as the dedicated housing courts that we see now across the state. And so my clients and I usually had 3 or 4 clients per hearing. We would have to sit through the first appearance criminal calendar, which of course took priority. So we'd have to sit through that calendar before the judge called the unlawful detainer calendar. And I remember one day during one of those unlawful detainer calendars, the judge called my name and told me to approach the bench. Now, mind you, he wasn't calling my case. He was calling me personally. And we had gotten to know each other because I appeared before him on a regular basis. So the first time that this happened, though, I had no idea what was going on. And as a new lawyer, I was pretty sure I had done something wrong. And so I got up and nervously approached the bench, and the judge directed me. He didn't ask me. He directed me to take these 2 pro se gentlemen out into the hall. He told me, explain the eviction process to them, advise them of their rights, and then be prepared to come back in, Ms. Hudson, in 20 minutes and argue their cases. And I was shocked because these were not my clients. They had not been screened for financial eligibility. And those of you who work with Smurls and the other legal aid offices, you know how important that is. And I was literally learning about their cases on the spot. And I remember distinctly thinking, this does not look like anything they talked about in law school. But so at any rate, this went on for a few months, and I was at the courthouse 2 or 3 times a week. So it ended up being a lot of clients. But eventually, then Executive Director Bruce Beneke of Smurls put a stop to it, because picking up all of these additional clients who had not been screened for eligibility jeopardized our federal LSC funding, which in the early 80s, as many of you who go back that far, Larry McDonough will certainly remember this, was under fierce attack on a national level. Not to mention, I simply couldn't keep up with the work. Well, I tell you all of this because as unorthodox as that process was, the judge was simply trying to help these pro se individuals navigate the legal system, because he knew what all of us know, which it is that it is critical for people to have representation to protect their rights. And he took this very unusual step in order to make that happen. And the justice gap, though, that existed back in 1982 when that was all going on, that led a judge to assign me clients I had never met, that gap unfortunately still exists today in 2021. Indeed, that gap is now a chasm, having been exacerbated by the pandemic and the expiration of the state's eviction moratorium, which I follow just because of my interest in housing law. And as well as the increased need for legal services in all areas as well. Some of you may have seen the April issue of Bench and Bar. There's an article there by Lilo Schulander with the Legal Aid Services of Northwestern Minnesota, in which she notes that the demand for legal services has skyrocketed. And this is not surprising, given that over 700,000 Minnesotans live below the federal poverty guidelines. She also highlights the technology divide that further exacerbates the problem. Many legal aid clients do not have access to printers and copiers and scanners. And simply because something is posted online does not mean that it is in fact accessible, as many clients cannot afford internet access or do not have the technological skills to utilize those resources. I have noted, though, that using federal CARES Act funding, Mid-Minnesota Legal Aid has gotten together with some of the other legal aid organizations and has developed some creative ways to increase access in the pandemic. And I'm thinking now of these newly purchased, and they've retrofitted the justice buses. I heard someone allude to that earlier. And it is just one example. The mini buses are staffed by legal aid attorneys, and they started crisscrossing the state late in the early part of the summer, delivering civil legal services to hard to reach communities. The mini buses have private and semi-private meeting spaces, and the attorneys provide common legal forms and information, as well as advice on things like securing rental assistance and navigating the maze of public benefits. But legal aid cannot do this work alone. It is simply impossible. So my request of you, members of MJF, here in the midst of ABA Pro Bono Week, which is a good time to be talking about these issues, is that you once again roll up your sleeves in this uncertain season, that you dig in, that you meet people where they are, and do what law students and lawyers do best: give voice and power to those who have none. Many of you have likely read Brian Stevenson's powerhouse book, Just Mercy. Much of that book is premised on what he calls the power of proximity. The power of proximity. Meeting people where they are, getting close to the poor and the marginalized. And when we get close, when we get in proximity, we often find that the clients we are serving have the same hopes and dreams that we do. And we also find that our eyes are open to creative solutions that we couldn't see from the office at our law firm. And I can tell you, having spent some time in my early career in proximity, I can tell you that there are few things more sobering, but also gratifying, than helping a client at a crowded, unlawful detainer calendar where the client is literally fighting to save their home so that their children have some place to sleep that night other than the local shelter or somebody's car. And we know from countless studies that children who have stable housing also do better in school. which in turn keeps them off the streets and provides them with employable skills, which in turn makes it more likely that they will stay out of the criminal justice system. So your pro bono work has significant positive ripple effects for your clients, but also the broader community. When you stay in proximity, you make a difference day in and day out, one client at a time. So maybe there are some law students out there and attorneys who want to volunteer to help staff the Justice Bus. But whatever you do, and there are so many opportunities out there, whatever you do, get close. Because every home you preserve, every medical benefit you secure, every expungement you secure that in turn helps people find housing and jobs, each unemployment maze that you guide someone through, and each order for protection that you put in the hands of an abused woman moves us closer. It moves us closer to a society that provides opportunities for everyone to succeed and to thrive, and one that affirms the dignity and humanity of every person. And so I want to leave you with this. In his book, Quiet Thoughts, Paul McElroy said that what belongs to us is not as important as to what we belong. I'll say that again. What belongs to us is not as important as to what we belong. He said there is strength in being identified with some worthy cause and in belonging to some purposeful group. And so that to which we belong and to which we give our loyalty must represent the highest and the very best that we know. Those of you here tonight belong not only to the legal profession, but you've given your loyalty, your time, your talents, your very identity to a worthy, purposeful group, the Minnesota Justice Foundation. And your unselfish work on behalf of others who can do nothing to repay you represents the highest and the best of our profession. And for that, I thank you and Godspeed. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Justice Hudson, for joining us tonight and for sharing your comments, and as importantly, for your service and leadership to everyone in Minnesota. We close tonight with two thank yous. The first thank you we have is to our gold sponsors, Dorsey and Whitney, Frederickson and Byron, Robbins Kaplan, and Stinson. We're grateful for the support that they've given to this event and to MJF's mission as a result of that. And to show our appreciation, we're going to take a brief moment and share videos highlighting the pro bono work of two of those firms, Robbins Kaplan and Stinson.
Every time that we represent a client, whether it's a Fortune 500 company or an individual, we really do everything we can and frequently do, in fact, rewrite the odds and make things better for those people. And that same passion, that same dedication, and all that talent that our individual lawyers and staff have, they bring to bear in the community, outside the four walls of the law firm, outside the courtroom, outside the litigation arena, when they participate in all these different community organizations and nonprofit organizations, and they give back in their time and their talent and also their treasure. So the time, talent, and treasure trifecta of giving back, our lawyers and our staff really do live that. And it's really heartwarming to see that.
I'm Allison Woodbury, and I'm a partner at Stinson LLP and a co-chair of the Pro Bono Committee. Our pro bono work in 13 offices across the country focuses on a broad range of areas such as human and immigrant rights, direct legal aid to the poor, fair and affordable housing, and neighborhood revitalization. We signed the Pro Bono Challenge in 1994 and consistently donate between 3 to 5% of our total billable hours to pro bono legal work. This past summer, we signed the law firm Anti-Racism Alliance Charter, pledging to use our pro bono resources to address systemic racism. And we were honored as a beacon of justice by the National Legal Aid and Defenders Association for our pro bono work on behalf of immigrants.
My name's Alok Sharma, and I'm a commercial litigator in Stinson's Minneapolis office. I have a very broad practice. These days, it's been a lot of sports. I currently serve as a vice chair of the sports section for the American Bar Association. Sports are great because I'm passionate about sports, but I'm also passionate about pro bono legal services. For the last 27 years, the firm's had a medical and legal partnership with the Community University Healthcare Clinic in the Phillips neighborhood of Minneapolis. This relationship is called the Diner Legal Clinic. As officers of the court, it is incumbent on each and every one of us to ensure that those that do not have resources can still access competent counsel. Over the last 2 years, over 85 Stinson attorneys and paralegals have devoted their time and energy to the Diner Legal Clinic.
Hi, my name is Melita Dugas, and I'm an attorney in the real estate division at Stinson. I'm also a board member with the Minnesota Justice Foundation. I'm proud of Stinson's commitment to pro bono legal work, as well as its partnerships with all of the Minnesota legal nonprofits, MJF included, to provide pro bono legal services to their various constituent groups. Since I started at Stinson, my pro bono legal work has mainly focused on representing children in the foster care system in connection with the Children's Law Center of Minnesota. Stinson's real estate group is also very active in a 5-year community economic development partnership with the Northside Residents Redevelopment Council and Mid-Minnesota Legal Aid. As I can personally attest, MJF's work with law students embeds a pro bono ethic into the Minnesota law students who Stinson hires as associates. On behalf of Stinson, I'd like to thank those at MJF for all that you do for the legal profession and for all Minnesotans.
Thank you to everyone who joined us. So thank you for taking time out of your day to join us, to recognize the accomplishments of our award winners. And thank you for considering a donation to support next summer's fellowship program. With that, I hope to see everyone actually in person at an actual event next year for our 40th anniversary. Thank you, everyone, and have a great evening.